In this video, I will demonstrate how to fix a stiff aperture ring on the Leitz Summitar lens. These lenses are quite old, and a common occurrence on these lenses is that the aperture ring will stiffen up and will be very hard to adjust. This one has already been fixed by me, but I will be using it to demonstrate to you how to do it. So earlier I had quite a big problem with changing the aperture on this lens, and I was considering sending it to a CLA, but I decided to have a go at it first myself. And now it is so easy to change, and this is really one of my favorite lenses. So basically, to fix the aperture ring, you will need a small precision slotted screwdriver. I will also be using a lens wrench or a lens tool. This is not really necessary. I just use these points to get a better catch on a part you will see later in the video. You can use your fingers too. I will also be using a rocket blower, which is just to get the dust out of the lens again when we reassemble it. And lastly, you will also need your preferred grease. There are many variants. I'm not going to recommend any in this video, but you will need that as well. We will also need a couple of Q-tips to remove the old grease, and to help us remove the grease we also need I use naphtha, which you can find, which basically is lighter fluid. This is the Ronsonol brand. Any naphtha or lighter fluid will help, and this will basically help you remove the old grease. So let's remove these items and get down to business. The first step you need to do is to remove the front lens assembly. This doesn't require any tools at all, just your hand force. And basically, the upper part here can be entirely screwed off the lens, and it will separate from this line here and up. And to remove it, you just basically use your hand to screw it out, and just have to remember the good old righty tighty lefty loosey. So you just turn it left, and I've already kind of loosened this, but it can be quite stuck. So then you just use your force, get it off. You can also use a rubber band around it to get a better grip. That might help. Then this will basically separate. So just put this away. You have a very exposed rear element here, which is concave. So put it down with the rear part up. You can also put a gloss over it, so you won't get an unnecessary dust on it. So just put that aside. And here you will basically have the entire aperture will be above the next lens. So what you basically have in front of you is the entire system. Now if we just lock the lens back in, we can rotate the aperture ring, and you will see that it opens and closes. Now to loosen more of this, you have two screws, one here and one on the reverse side. These will have to be removed. And there's also one thing to remember when you reassemble it, is that all your aperture marks, at whatever position you put them, will be on the opposite side of the big guideline on the other side. It's a good thing to remember. So basically, take out these small tiny screws, put them aside, don't lose this, Now you can remove the aperture ring. Just wiggle it off. And there you have it. The two screws you just removed, they basically follow a guideline which is on either side, and the screws is what basically holds the aperture ring from going too far, and the screws are basically lined up with the two notches in the inner barrel ring. So what you will do here is, to thoroughly remove all grease, you will have to remove the inner barrel, and it's entirely loose. It's just held down by the two screws you removed. So you can lift this out. If you see in there, you have all the aperture blades, individual aperture blades, and all the little knobs on them will basically align with all the slots on the underside. So when this rotate, we'll just drag them with it. So we drop this back in. Just make sure we hit correctly. We'll also fold down in place with some help. Now I take my lens tool and just put it into the slots where the screws go. You can basically rotate it and you will see the aperture opening and closing. Now as you remove the barrel and use your Q-tip with some naphtha on it, and you can start to scrub the outer side of it, and then try to get in between the little slots there as well to remove everything in there. And as you do that, the aperture blades can get out of position. So what do? Well, you basically try to push it back, try to align all the knobs in a fair distance to each other, and when you're done with removing all the grease and reapplying it, you can take this, and here comes the other tricky part, which I will have to tell you about. Now the aperture is fully open down there now. So what you want to do is you place your aperture ring with the markings on the opposite side of the guideline. So like this. Then, if you can see it, you have a little screw hole there. Just want to put this on 2. And what you will basically have is the screw hole will be at the very edge of it here, of the entire of the slots, and that's basically where you're going to align the slots here with those holes. As you can see, my aperture blades went apart from each other again. So I'm just gently pushing them aside. That looks fairly clean. So we'll remember that the slots will have to point towards the screw holes. And drop the entire barrel in. It's not entirely down yet, so just wiggle it, and there it fell in place. To be sure about this, we just rotate this barrel very gently to see that all aperture blades comes along and that it's in a perfect circle. If it's not in a perfect circle, just try to wiggle it, remove the lens barrel, try to realign them, but this looks fairly good. And I can feel absolutely no resistance. So that's a good placement. So basically what we will do now is try to find the screw holes which is there. You can rotate this entire thing with your fingers. I just find the lens tool to be easier. And there I can look through one screw hole and I can look straight through the other, so that's perfectly aligned. And what you basically do now that you have reapplied your grease and remove all old grease, so basically just take your screws back. Screw it all back together. You can just double check that the screw actually goes through. That may be hard to see on camera. You can see the screw poking slightly out here. You can also see my barrel is rather rusty, which is an issue I'm going to fix later when I have the correct material to fix it. Then you pop the other screw back in. Try to tighten them slightly, but not just too tight. Both screws are in. And if I try the lens ring, you can see it working okay. Perfect. Last step is basically reapplying the front element, the front lens assembly, which we have there. Use your rocket blower, hold it upside down, give it a few strong puffs to get rid of the dust that has accumulated. Same with the underside of your lens element. Take it back in. Now when you get to the edge, now the lens is fully open. The dot only goes to 2.2, it should go back to 2. So then you just tighten it, screw it until it aligns with 2, which you can see there. So basically, take it all the way to 12.5, it's closed, all the way back to 2, it's open. It's important that the aperture number aligns with the dot on the front lens assembly, because that has to do with how sharp your pictures will get. And basically, that's all there is to it.